Hello, it's Susan Crutchfield, the Carnegie Director, and welcome to this special presentation of Hometown Novel Nights. This program was recorded on Thursday, August 20th on Zoom, and we want to thank everybody who joined us for our Zoom presentation, but we wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to meet these three fabulous authors. So I hope you enjoy this program, and we're going to hand the Master of Ceremony duties over to author T.M. Brown.
What I wanted to do is kind of give everybody a little bit of an update, those that are listening, that we don't have you necessarily on the panel. Hometown Novel Nights has been, we were going gangbusters for virtually 2 years. And then this little bug shows up and kind of causes us all to stumble a little bit with the in-person events. But we've kind of worked around a little bit of it. And even though, I'm not the technologically, talented individual, I figured where there's a way, there's a will. And I guess I've been introduced to will a few times along my career. So I want to begin, first of all, by saying thank you to Susan Crutchfield. The Noonan Carnegie has become such an integral part of what we're doing at Hometown Novel Night. Anytime that we have, or I have, or any of us have been engaged in conversation about what Hometown Novel Nights is all about, we put the Carnegie Library on a pedestal for Hometown Novel Nights. We go to different venues now. We've expanded to Warm Springs, LaGrange. We now have an invitation to go to Sharpsburg. The mayor of Sharpsburg, Blue Cole, saw me today and was asking for us to be considering doing some things with them there. We've actually been approached in other arenas, distant, that, some bookstores have even inquired beyond that, how can we do this? And all I keep looking at, I get cross-eyed when they start asking that, because as Angie knows, there's a limit to how far we can do what we do. Yeah. We are an unpaid, strictly volunteer group of authors trying to help other authors. And Angie's been with this program since the very conception. I couldn't do anything without her, so I appreciate everything Angie has done.
That's not really true, Mike, but I have been here for a long time, but I do try to help where I can. But Mike is definitely the force behind this organization.
Just kind of, again, I wanted to kind of let you know that, yes, we've been kind of forced onto this online format, as many author events have been, or any event. But, we have been enjoying, to some degree, some success at Warm Springs Cellars. Ms. Sonia Adams has been a treat. We met her last fall, and she wanted to invite us to participate in some capacity with her quaint, cozy venue in Warm Springs. And we have been since March, doing monthly author events, one or two authors at a time. It's not a big event. It's much more, and Pat, you were at one, so you know what I'm talking about. It's much more socially interactive. It's informal. It's not going to be a formal panel kind of presentation. And we're continuing to do that. In fact, the next one will be September 12th will be the next event there. We also are doing Pretty Good Books, is a brand new, they opened up officially in December. Imagine opening up a business in December, all of a sudden in March, but Josh Rigsby expressed interest, and we've been able to work with Josh over there in LaGrange, giving us a foothold in LaGrange, and we're doing monthlies. As a matter of fact, Scott's going with Lynn Horton from Sonoya. They're both going to be there on August 29th for a 1 to 4 o'clock thing. So if y'all are, thinking about it, there's some things we got to, trying to give authors optional opportunity. Obviously we still have Rogers Barbecue in Hogansville, which is where we really began. And, Tony Stribling and Randy Stribling, looking forward to maybe doing something. And for everybody listening and that will see this later on recorded view, all of the books are available at the library. And Pat, you got your books there. Valerie, you have yours there. I'm pointing because I'm pointing at pictures is what I'm doing. And Angie, you've got yours there. 25% of all of the books that are purchased through the library goes to the library. So, you know, please consider, for those that are local enough to come to the library, you know, pick an author that you find tonight and purchase a book or two, because it helps the library and it helps some independent authors too, to be able to say, hey, I sold a few books, especially since we're virtual. Angie, would you kick us off and talk about yourself, which I know you don't do very often?
Yes, I would love to. So I am Angie Gallion. I'm a Georgia local, and I have 5 books to my credit right now. A 6th is being shopped as I speak, so I'm very excited about that. I've never really tried to get an agent or tried to land a publishing contract. I've always been kind of indie and small press, because that's kind of where my love is, and I really don't do very well with rejection, so I didn't really want that. And honestly, so I'll tell you a little my journey and how I became not a rejection fan. I started writing my first book in college. I did it for a master's thesis. And when I was finished with it, I was supposed to hand it over to my 5 peer professors, my 5 male professors. And it was a very female story. It was very much a girl's trying to find her path through a difficult childhood and how to live a decent life after that. And I really wasn't mature enough to even understand what I had written at that point. But whenever it came time to turn it over, I said, you know, I'm not ready to share this with anybody. And I put it in a drawer, and I walked away from my master's program. Probably the biggest regret I have in my adult life is walking away from my master's program. Not that I'm career oriented, so it really wouldn't have done anything for me. It's just I hate the fact that I didn't finish something. So my book, which at that time was called The Last Year, sat in that drawer, and every year I would pull it out and I'd rework it and I'd play with it, and it never had an ending. I just couldn't figure out how the thing was supposed to end. I had all these scenes, and slowly it morphed, and some of those scenes fell away and new scenes came in, and it transformed from the book that I'd written in college to something that I was actually mature enough to comprehend what I had done. And when I did that, 2016 rolls around. We'd moved into this new house, and something about this house, where we are now, made me feel really energized and creative. And my real estate lady was here with me one day, and we were waiting for some work to be done before we even bought the house. And we were talking about writing, and she's an avid reader. And I said, oh, I have this book. I should let you read it. You know, like, I'll never let anybody read this book. And she convinced me to share it with her. 2 days later, she calls me and says, oh my gosh, you have to publish this. I don't care how you publish this, but you have to publish this. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And she says, people have to know Allison. And she even went so far that if I couldn't afford to get an editor to do it, she would pay for my editor. That's how much she believed in this book. Well, we got our editor, and I self-published that book. And I thought, you know what? I finally finished something. And because it had just been right before that I'd actually found the ending to that book. And I thought I was done. I'm like, hey, I finally completed something. I never have to do anything else in my life. I'm a published writer. Yay, yay, yay. And I thought I was done. And then I started getting emails from people saying, please tell me there's a 2nd book in this series. I have to know what happens to Allison. It took me 25 years to write the first book. There was no way I had another book in me. So I started thinking about who she needed to meet to find a path to get out of the cesspool of her childhood. And I wrote the 2nd book in 6 weeks. So Purgus was a 6-week project. And the entire time I was writing it, I felt like somebody else had taken over my body and was telling this story. I don't know whose story it was, but it certainly wasn't mine. But to this day, that's probably my favorite thing I've ever written, is that 2nd book in that Allison Hayes series. So once I got that done, I was on a roll. And so that whole series just kind of tripped off the meter. And I'm really proud of it. It's received some awards. I get consistently high reviews for it. But I have still not been one to reach out to a publisher. So my editor actually has a small publishing company, and she wanted to take all my stuff in. So I said, sure, let's do that, because then I can say I have a publisher. I'm not self-published anymore. And that felt like a big deal. And so we republished all of my books. I had 4 books at that time. And then I have a psychological thriller called Off the Dark Ledge, which was a lot of fun to write. My husband says I can't write the sequel because he said I was kind of crazy the entire time I worked on it. And so he doesn't want to see me back in that character. But Off the Dark Ledge, I'm really proud of. I often say that I think it's my crossover book, even though it hasn't quite crossovered yet, that it's going to be the one that people are going to recognize me. They're going to say, oh my gosh, she's a real talent and she's got something of value to say. Hasn't happened yet, it may yet, but that's Off the Dark Ledge. And then I have the current project that I'm working on, just found its title. It's called Hush Delilah. And I'm actually seeking agents and looking for medium-sized presses for it. So, but it's exciting too, but I can't tell too much about it because we're still in talks. Any questions?
Hey, this is Wanda.
Hi, Wanda.
Tom and I just finished Off the Dark Ledge.
What did you think?
My gosh. I couldn't put it down. And I kept telling Tom about it, and I think he read it faster than I did. It is so detailed. It is so, but it doesn't matter. It just pulls you into those details and through the whole thing, you know, and you and I talked about the fact that I work with special ed students that really, took me deeper into it. Oh my God. That you got to get recognition for that because it is so worthy.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to do something kind of special with that book because, I like to write about mental illness or addiction or things that I think the human psyche is so powerful that we can heal ourselves. And that's really what I tried to do with that book. I didn't even know really what I was doing until I read it through after the first pass with the editor. And then I recognized what I was doing and I had to add some things to make it actually work. But I was so proud of the way it turned out. That's so nice to hear.
You made it work.
Good.
You made it work.
Now,
there's no question about that. Everything Wanda said is exactly reflective of my reaction to the book as well.
I'm so glad. So it kept you engaged the entire time. You didn't lose focus.
I didn't want to go to work. I wanted to stay here and read the book.
That's awfully nice to hear. Well, that house that I describe in that book is actually my house.
Really?
So that's actually the beach house that made me feel so inspired to start writing again. So
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's my beach house.
I had already addressed to Angie, it's one of the books that I read of hers that I describe it as being the best thriller that I have read in any number of years. And I told her, I said, young lady, go get it published. And I don't, go do the work, face the rejection, because it won't take long before somebody says, yes, I want this.
I just don't do rejection well.
But that makes you appreciate the yes.
Yeah.
So, anybody else have a question for Angie? Her books are tremendous, and she has a real knack, and it shows that she's also an editor too. Tell us about where your books are available, besides the Carnegie Library right at this moment.
Mute myself. Okay. So my books I have a website. You can order directly through me and I'll be happy to send them to you with my beautiful little signature in there. But other than that, they're available at all online retailers. I think I may have a few copies up at Corner Arts Gallery.
You have quite a few there, yeah.
Do I have a few? I don't know if I have the full series, so I need to update her, I think. But you can pretty much find me anywhere. Barnes and Nobles will order them in, I discovered, which was very exciting. And Walmart will order them in also. You can order them online at Walmart and all those online retailers, which is very exciting. So any place books are sold, I'm there.
Angie, can you also share with us if you have any social media pages for
Absolutely.
You on?
So
Thanks.
my website is www.angiegallion.com. And my social media, if you search for Angie Gallion Lovell, you'll find me and everything links up to me there. So Angie Gallion Lovell.
And next up is Miss Valerie. Are you ready?
I am ready. So I don't know if you ever hear the terms plotter and pantser, in which the plotters have everything very carefully planned out before they start writing, and the pantsers just like to go by this. I am a plotter, so I have this full speech that I wrote. I will try to deliver it in a more natural and entertaining fashion, but this is how I cope with stress. All right, so I am Valerie Valdes. I'm the author of the novel Chilling Effect, which is out now, and Prime Deceptions, which will come out in a few weeks. I'm very excited. I've also written a lot of short fiction and poetry that appears in different magazines and anthologies like Uncanny Magazine, Nightmare Magazine, Time Travel Short Stories, She Walks in Shadows, some other stuff. Chilling Effect is my debut novel, my first novel. It's a space opera, as Mike said before. It's about a spaceship captain whose sister is kidnapped by an intergalactic crime syndicate, which blackmails her into doing their dirty work in exchange for ransoming her sister. So she has to deal with psychic cats and angry alien emperors and lots of other shenanigans as she and the crew of her ship zip around the universe trying to do what they have to do to get her sister back. And it's very much a story about blood family, found family, the tensions between doing what you think is right and having to compromise your ideals to help someone. And then Prime Deceptions, which is the sequel, continues the story. And in that one, the captain and crew are trying to find a missing scientist who may hold the key to saving the universe. And both books pull a lot from pop culture and video games and kind of the TV and movies and stuff that I was interfacing with as I was growing up. So they are very much just kind of fun adventure novels with also a lot of thoughtful stuff that I kind of crammed in there secretly. But so today I would like to talk about something that you may know about already, which is windows and mirrors, not the physical kinds, but the fictional kind. My writing journey started way back in first grade, and I'm not going to get into ages or years because, of course, I do not want to cause a riot, but so in first grade, I'm older than I look, and yet let us not go there. So in first grade, I wrote a 2-page short story for school, and it was about aliens trying to steal my skin. Except I tricked them by giving them a piece of colored notebook paper, so they let me go. Now, if I were critiquing that story now, I would have some notes about believability, obviously, but for a 6-year-old, it was just like so clever. I thought it was brilliant. And it was also my first foray into writing science fiction, which has just been a lifelong love of mine, as well as fantasy, horror, mystery, just kind of genre fiction in general. I was always an avid reader growing up. My mom would drive me and my sister to the library every week. We'd get just huge stacks, bags of books that would pretty much just last until the end of the week. And, you know, we'd get stuff from the school library, the scholastic book fairs. Sometimes at the mall, when my mom was shopping for clothes, we would just kind of, she'd park us in Walden Books or B. Dalton, and we would just read. Sorry to the retail establishments, as they became unintentional babysitters for children like us. But I read Nancy Drew, Perry Mason, Sherlock Holmes, Tarzan, John Carter, you know, King Arthur, the Connecticut Yankee in his court. By the end of middle school, I had fortunately or unfortunately read a terrifying number of Stephen King novels and Anne Rice and other extremely age-inappropriate things that I am still shocked to this day I was allowed to check out. By the end of high school, I had shifted pretty much to science fiction and fantasy, and made my way through Asimov, Bradbury, Clark, Heinlein, you name it, I read it. All of the writers who are considered canon, depending on who you ask at this point. Now, unlike the other folks here, I am not a Georgia native. I'm a transplant. I recently moved here from Miami, which you may know is in Florida, which is doing great right now. But it was not always a city full of Cuban and other Latin American people, but when I was a kid it was, and I myself am Cuban American. My mom is from Cuba. So I was always surrounded by people speaking English, Spanish, mostly, also Creole and other languages, because we had a lot of international folks who settled there. And so this was something that I very much took for granted but that also felt strange when I opened books because that wasn't really what I found in the things that I was reading. At home, I spoke Spanish with my grandparents, English or Spanish or Spanglish with my mom, my sister, and with my friends. But everything that I read was in English, except the stuff that included constructed languages like Elvish or Dwarvish or Klingon or what have you. I didn't read Spanish well enough to dive into the great works of Latin American and Hispanic culture, unfortunately. And a lot of the books that were available in my area were not the kind of genre books that I wanted to read. So it's not that they didn't exist, I couldn't find them. So for a long time, when I was writing, I was trying to reproduce the kinds of things that I was reading to, mimic the authors that I had honestly not a lot in common with when you're kind of looking at their breadth and oeuvre. And so it wasn't until college that someone first started encouraging me to use my own experiences in life and surroundings as fodder for my fiction. And I wasn't quite ready to absorb those lessons. It was kind of strange to me to think about putting people like me and my friends and my family and neighbors and my wider circle of acquaintances into my work because I had never really seen that in anything that I'd read. And so sliding sideways a little bit, among other things, mom, wife, etc., I am a municipal liaison for National Novel Writing Month, which, as the name suggests, is a yearly event that happens every November, where people all over the world get together and try to write a 50,000-word novel in 1 month. And obviously, if Angie can write a novel in 6 weeks, you too can write a novel in 1 month, right? And so I figured I can do this. So I started it in 2004, fresh out of college. And every year for the last 15 years, I have tried to write a novel. And I say tried because obviously not all of them were completed. Even if I made it to the 50,000 word mark, I tend to write long novels. So by the time I wrote Chilling Effect, which is the book that I mentioned at the beginning, I had 10 novels under my belt in various stages of completion, and almost none of them featured characters that reflected the diversity that I grew up with and lived in. Instead, they were people that I had met in the books that I read or seen on TV or in movies, who I thought were, cool and relevant to wider audiences. And then finally, I just kind of decided, why not put a Cuban American in space or someone descended from Cuban Americans? Because of course this is in the far future, so humans have already spread out all over the place. They're all over the universe, mingling with lots of non-human species. And so I figured if a book can have psychic cats and creatures that eat metal and planets with methane snow and faster than light travel and wormhole gates and laser guns and force field shields, why can't it have Spanish? So why can't people like me and my friends and family just go on adventures and visit far off galaxies and fly spaceships? And so that is what I did. I wrote them doing it because that is the stuff that I wanted to see in books. So we come back to what I mentioned at the beginning, the notion of windows and mirrors and my writing journey. Growing up, the books that I read were mostly windows. So they let me look into other places and all these other people living their lives, having their adventures. But what I realized I was missing and didn't know that I craved was mirrors that would reflect myself and my experiences and my world back at me somehow, so that I could see myself in the stories that I was reading. And once I realized I was missing that, I wanted to make it happen myself. And so for a lot of people, obviously my books will be windows and not mirrors into these other worlds with the other people that may not be familiar, but I definitely hope they will be interesting. And I hope that for some readers, they are mirrors and that they do reflect themselves in ways they maybe hadn't experienced before. And so that is kind of my writing journey. And once I finished my book, to get into the nitty gritty, I did go through the querying trenchers, and I did also Twitter pitch events, which you can go on and basically give a quick pitch, and this is very specific time frame kind of thing, and agents can like your pitch, and then if they do, you send them your query stuff. And so I did that, and I found my agent, and she sold my book to a publisher, and here I am, and now you can have it yourself, as well as a sequel, like I said, that comes out next month. And then recently also sold the third book in the trilogy, Fault Tolerance, which should be out in 2022, as well as another book, which is TBA. But so that is my story, my writing journey, and I hope that my speed was not a lot, because that's what I do when I get nervous, but I'm so excited to be here, and I hope you all find your own windows and mirrors in all of the books in your life.
I'm pretty well read, and I've heard the term space opera before, but I've never asked, and I've never looked it up. What exactly is a space opera?
Okay, so space opera is science fiction that typically occurs out in space. People are on ships, they're flying from planet to planet. It tends to be more adventure-based fiction rather than something that is focused on the technology and the science, which is more of the hard science fiction side. It tends to be on the softer science fiction side, so more concerned with human character relationships, relationships with non-human species, again, traveling to different places. And so you can think of it as soap opera in space. But it also tends to have kind of epic stakes where, oh my gosh, if they don't succeed, then the universe will be destroyed. And so in that same way that soap opera can have very high level dramatic stakes, space opera often is also that. And so stuff like Star Wars, you would probably be considering space opera, although some people call it space fantasy or space adventure. Newer stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy would probably be space opera, Thor Ragnarok. And I have a whole lot of space opera suggestions if anyone ever wants to start delving into the world of new space opera. But yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
So it's not Andre Bocelli out there, because that's what I automatically go to, and I'm like,
No.
figure out what that is. Well, that makes perfect sense. That makes
Yeah. There is a novel literally called Space Opera by an author named Catherine Valenti, and that one is basically Eurovision in space. And so there is, in fact, music. This is a band, an Earth-based human band that has to defend the sanctity of Earth against destruction by entering into this American Idol style contest. So that's a fun one if you ever want to have, and it's called Space Opera, so it's easy to find.
Where are you published and where are your books available?
Okay, my publisher is Harper Voyager, which is an imprint of HarperCollins, and you can find my books on their website. You can find the links on my website, ValerieValdes.com or CandleandSunshine.com. And much like Angie's books, you can find them at any online retailer. So wherever books are sold, and sometimes in brick and mortar stores, but their inventory at this point, the coronavirus situation has caused a lot of different kinds of weird publishing issues in some places. So one never knows what one will find in stores at this point, but inventory turnover being what it is, you may or may not find it in a Barnes & Noble, but you'll definitely find it online.
Valerie, you are totally delightful to listen to. I enjoyed your little talk. What age group do you find are your readers?
I would say that it varies. My books are adult books. They are not young adult. But that said, as I mentioned, I was reading highly inappropriate stuff as a young adult. And so I feel my books are, we'll say PG-13. They are appropriate for teenagers, but may not be interesting to them. But they are adult books. Probably, I would say, maybe 25 to 40 would be the sweet spot in terms of folks who will get my cultural references. But that said, I cannot claim that others outside of that range will not enjoy them.
Okay, because I kind of I'm thinking about my grandkids, my teenage grandkids, that they might be interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there is.
Look forward to reading.
Thank you. There are books that do have violence in them. There are what you might call sexual situations, but they are, again, there's nothing explicit, and so no worse than you would see in a PG-13 movie. There is a lot of very salty language, however. So.
What I was going to say, and this applies to all three of the authors, and to everybody listening and the authors that are listening, if you haven't checked out bookshop.org, when it's sometimes hard to find a book that's from a bookstore because you don't have it in a convenient bookstore, that is a great resource to go to, bookshop.org, and you put in your book or your author, and it'll pull up, and then it'll say, well, where are you located? And it'll locate the nearest bookstores, and you can actually order the book through them, and the bookstore still gets credit. They've earned over $6 million since the start of the year that's gone to independent bookstores throughout the country. So I did a plug for them just because I think they're awesome. I've been fortunate to sit in on a couple of Pat's conversations. Pat is a local from Noonan, and a lot of folks that are on the list here know of him, and but some of you don't. So Pat, pretend like nobody knows you. You're this anonymous author out there trying to make his way into the literary world.
I am. I'm an anonymous author out there. So
if you'll kick it off and talk about, really give a background of yourself and then your writing journey and all.
Okay, so it is a benefit to go last because I get to hear all these lovely people go in front of me. It's a detriment to go last because now everybody has heard both of their wonderful presentations and I have to step up and try to match that. Well, it's not going to happen. I don't have the energy of Valerie, and I certainly don't have the experience of Angie. So you just got me stuck here at the end, and now he's leaving. So I don't know what's going on. I guess I just, but one of the things I do want to mention is that Valerie and Mike and I have something in common. And that is I was born in Miami as well. I was born in Miami. I was born Jackson Memorial Hospital a long, long time ago, by the way. But, and I went to, I grew up in South Miami. Near, my mother worked at the university. And I hung out at the local library down there in South Miami, which is still one of my favorite places in the whole world. I did the same thing you did, Valerie. We went there and picked up piles of books and brought them home. That was my entertainment. So anyway, listening to the two of you though, you know, what we're all trying to do seems to be very similar. The way I got into writing is kind of, I guess, in a way to satisfy a really, really strong need that I had. I'm a lawyer. I've been writing all my life. I practiced in Atlanta for a while. I moved to Noonan with my family. I've been here practicing in this little, you see the little brick wall behind me. This is my office. But I started out many years ago, and a number of my friends said I had an interesting story to tell and urged me to tell that story. Similar, I think, to Angie and to Valerie, you know, you have a story you want to tell. And so what I did is I wrote a memoir. I started out being nonfiction, wrote a memoir. I took it to an agent. First thing the agent said is, "This is entirely too depressing. You don't want to do this." So the agent said the same thing that agents tell everybody: write what you know. You're a lawyer, write a legal thriller. So this was about 10 years ago. And I realized also that I didn't have the skill that I needed to be able to write fiction, which is what I wanted to do. And so I went and started a creative writing program at Kennesaw State University. I took a number of courses. I didn't enroll in an MFA program or anything. I wasn't trying to get a degree. I just wanted to get the skills. And so out of that experience came my first novel, Ariel's Island. It's a legal thriller, surprise, right? A legal thriller. The basic plot is that a young lawyer is framed for the murder of a judge, and he enlists an artificial intelligence program named Ariel to help him clear his name and to rescue a beautiful heiress. You know, all legal thrillers must have beautiful heiresses. So this one has a beautiful heiress. There are some real twists and turns in the plot. The beautiful heiress in the end doesn't necessarily turn out to be the princess that everybody would expect her to be. And the artificial intelligence program, Ariel, morphs from an able assistant for this young lawyer in his law practice to a powerful protector, then to a jealous mistress, and ultimately into a murderous monster. So it is a study about morality. And the idea came to me from Shakespeare's Tempest. As you probably know, at the end of Shakespeare's Tempest, he frees, the protagonist frees a spirit named Ariel. Ariel's an all-powerful spirit. He frees Ariel, and that's the last you hear of Ariel in the play. Well, it's always intrigued me, what happened to Ariel? What happens when you free an all-powerful spirit into the world? And to me, the contemporary analogy of that is artificial intelligence, and trying to figure out how artificial intelligence will, in our society, react, whether it will develop a moral core or not. And I think that's a central question that artificial intelligence has to answer. I wrote Ariel's Island. I went to innumerable agents, publishers, editors, and Angie, I think I probably broke the record on rejections. So I got rejected many, many times. But the great thing is the last publisher I went to accepted my book. So, you know, that's how it works, right? The last one is the one that does it. So I took my manuscript to Steve McKee here, Southern Fried Karma. He sent my manuscript off to an editor, a concept editor, I think is what he called it. And, you know, I think a lot of us have great fear about what editors are going to do with our little babies when we send them off to them. And this editor read my book, my manuscript in a weekend, sent back a detailed memorandum saying, you know, you got to change it from A to Z. And my reaction was, well, I'm not going to do that. And then about 2 weeks later, I went to Steve and said, yeah, I think he's right. And in about 2 months, I rewrote the whole thing. So it took me 10 years to get from the start to the finish, and it took me about 2 months to rewrite it based upon the edits. And so that is how Ariel's Island became. If any of you read Ariel's Island, you'll realize that it has a cliffhanger ending and that it's begging for a sequel. And I'm writing the sequel right now. As a matter of fact, you can probably see a computer behind me. It's, you know, chapter 1's right there. So I'm working on the sequel, and I love the time that I have to write. I write all the time as a lawyer. I'm constantly writing briefs, memoranda, letters, etc. But the time that I steal, and I call it time that I steal time early in the morning. I get in the office and steal time from my clients. I write instead of working on their cases. And I enjoy that more than anything. I don't have any illusion that I will be able to supplant my income for my family by writing. But I think it's going to keep me around a lot longer. So that's the trade-off. Anyway, my book, Ariel's Island, is available on Amazon. I don't know where else it's available. One other thing I would conclude with, though, is that just last month, I was notified that Ariel's Island won the best thriller in the National Indie Excellence Awards. It's a national award, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I think first time out of the box, that was a pretty good deal. That's it.
When I will open up to questions here in 1 second, but you know, I remember sitting in a workshop talking about mystery, suspense, thrillers, and the first thing that the instructor said, and I don't know if any of you know David Fuller out of Atlanta, but he said, the body needs to be on the ground in the opening scene. Well, Pat gets the first sentence out and the body is, well, it's not on the floor, quite literally. He's suspended in air in a water fountain or something. And I read that and I was like, wow, that's like crazy. And to think of the water spewing through a body kind of thing because they couldn't turn off the fountain. I won't say any more because that'll give away. But I know you read that at the recent event, and I was just mesmerized with that. I said, now, okay, now where does he go from here?
Right.
And
well,
fantastic.
I took it seriously. I took seriously the idea that you start a thriller with a dead body, and by goodness, there's a dead body on the first page.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, not just the body with a bullet in its head. So anybody have a question for Pat? Because that is an outstanding. If you like John Grisham like stories, or David Baldacci even, you know, with the legal stuff, or I'm trying to think of a couple of the names off the top of my head, but you know, there's some similarities there, but because of the aerial island technology side of it, I don't even think John Grisham has broached that, you know, concept yet. Who knows? But I've been enthralled with reading into your book as I have, and well done, Pat. Well done. I'm envious. Very envious. Anybody else out there? Tom, you out there?
My to be read file. It's up there.
Good.
I think I got 2 ahead of it, but I'm getting there.
Great. I'd love to hear what you think about it, Angie. I love your stuff, and really impressed with all your work, and
Thank you.
Really gratified by hearing what you think.
I do have a question for you though, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
So as Mike mentioned, I do a little editing on the side. I do content editing. So when you talk about concept editing, I wondered, do you feel that your concept editor improved your overall novel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unquestionably. I was at first, when I got the memo back, I was just taken aback by the idea that he thought that this was not the next, you know, Da Vinci Code or something, you know, and he said, yeah, oh, you got it all wrong. You're going this way, you got to go this way. And he was right. He absolutely was right. And I rewrote, as a result, I rewrote the beginning and the end of the novel. So the beginning that Mike's talking about came as a result of this concept editor.
Good.
Yep.
I just always wonder what people think when they get stuff.
Yeah, you can get really mad. A lot of people react that way. I think that's the wrong reaction. I think anybody who wants to constructively approach your work, you can learn from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You had the same, but since Pat and I have the same publishing house, that was Pinckney Benedict that did your developmental. Yeah, I remember going through that. You know, you want me to do what? You know, so yeah. He has a knack for getting you to start right at that right moment and make just a little tweak to it. And yeah, I had an initial reaction like that. You hate to carve up your baby, but sometimes you admit that he's a pretty good nanny, so maybe he knows how to get it there. Well, Valerie, with your Harper experience and all, how was the editing from the publishing house there?
Yeah, before I started creating, I had beta readers, which is when you wrangle your friends and family and you just make them read your damn book. And so I had that experience first, and then when I applied to a workshop called Viable Paradise, and that is every year except this year, of course, for obvious reasons, in Martha's Vineyard, and it's a beautiful experience. You and 23 of your peers get together and rip each other's work to shreds, and so that was how I ended up with a much tighter version of my first few chapters, and took that, ended up getting my agent, and so on and so forth. And so by the time that it got to the editors at the publisher, it had been through my beta readers. It had been through also a workshop, an online workshop called The Brainery, which unfortunately is no longer around, and been through my agent. And then the editor had notes, which were that sort of more high level stuff. And then I had a copy editor. And then I had a page editor, which was editing the print version of the book, basically after the sort of line edit the copy editor goes through. And so, boy, by the end of it, I had probably gone through it, 6 or 7 times, and I was definitely very fatigued.
Yeah, very good. Well, Pat, I love the fact that you and I match in a lot of ways because, I didn't start writing until, novels until late in my life.
Right.
The old adage goes, as you're learning, and Angie, you already learned, there's almost no such thing as just writing one book. If it's a good book, people want more. So, Pat, I know you've got people clamoring to get the sequel, and I know that's how my 1 became 3 and now going to 4. And Angie, you went 3, 4, and now going to 5 and 6. The way you're going, and Valerie, you're going through the same way. So you told me, Valerie, before I forget, you mentioned you had like 10 different novels going, or
oh, yeah. So because I do National Novel Writing Month every year, I have about 15 novels floating around in some form or other. Yeah, because it's basically every year you start a new draft and go. And they now have added events in April and in July that they call Camp NaNoWriMo, and so sometimes I use those to finish novels, and sometimes I use them to start new novels. And so yeah, definitely got a lot of stuff out there that may or may not ever see the light of day. Completed novels, I've got about 4. So
Actually wrote Purgus, the second book, using NaNoWriMo writing. So it's 1,600 words a day, no matter what it is, and
Yep.
you just get it on the page and then you go back and work through it later.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much how I write now, is I try to make, whenever I'm writing, and I don't get to write all the time, but whenever I am writing, it's always, I have a goal for that many, and I learned that from NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, I find it works very well. And, just having that sort of set, experience. What I love about the actual official events is that you are doing it with a lot of other people. And so there's that sort of collegiality and that sense of community which develops. But having any goal for yourself, even if you set a very small goal, 1 page a day, a couple hundred words a day, or if you set a weekly goal or a monthly goal or something like that, I mean, it's, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. So it's a matter of trying to create habits and doing what you can.
Well, fantastic. Wonderful. Is anybody out there?
Hi, guys. Hi, guys.
Yes, Tom.
This is Tom. No, I did have a couple comments, questions for Pat. I couldn't believe that he had been rejected so many times, because I've seen his marketing technique work, and it is something that he can offer to the other writers on the panel. I don't know if Pat remembers, we met at Warm Springs Cellars, and the first thing he did was buy me a beer if I would buy his book. And so we wound up, I think we bought 6 books at the time. So it is some technique that you could use. And I'm surprised you didn't use that with some of the agents and publishers that you talked to. No, at the time,
we could go through those back in the old days. There were the 3 martini lunches. I think if I had that with an agent, I'd have nailed it.
No, I think at the time, obviously, I hadn't read the book, and I did afterward, and it's excellent on so many levels. I really enjoyed it. I also gave it a very good review on Goodreads. I think I sent you an email with it.
Thank you.
If you hadn't seen it, but no, I think the thing that impressed me so much about it wasn't just the single level legal thriller. I'm not a lawyer. I don't care much about the legal process. Hopefully I'll never be involved in it. And so that wasn't what would have hooked me. The aerial reference, the whole morality tale side of it, and the artificial intelligence, which has always been an interest of mine, and something I've dabbled in myself, so that I was, very aware of that. And if it wasn't technologically sound, I probably would have given up on it. But the combination of those 3 things made it a very, very powerful thriller, and I really enjoyed every moment of it.
But I haven't seen your books. I know that they're on the online, but who has their book in front of them that they want to show everybody? There's the chilling effect. Yeah. Pat, I knew you had to have one nearby. Angie, Angie,
Out in my car.
hold on. In your car.
In my car.
I have forgotten to do this so many times, but now I'm prepared. Those first few Zoom events, they get you, and then you're like, oh.
Hold on. There you go. Mike's
got it.
The dark ledge. I'll start off. I just want you all to be on the lookout for Hush Delilah. I'm hoping, I think I'm just going to skip 2020 because really, let's just skip 2020. And I'm looking for a 2021 launch date. So hopefully I'll be picked up by a bigger press and have some marketing behind me. That would be awesome. So look for Hush Delilah.
Outstanding. Pat.
Yes, I want to mention my Facebook page. If y'all happen to want to find more about my books, future books, about me and about my project, it's Pat McKee, author, at Facebook.
There you go. All right. Miss Valerie.
All right. I have my novel Chilling Effect that's out. You can find it in stores now everywhere. And Prime Deceptions is coming out, like I said, next month, September 8th. So you can pre-order that now. The first 2 chapters are on my website, valerievaldes.com. So you can check those out. There's also a Goodreads giveaway until the end of the month. So if you want to enter to win a free copy on Goodreads, you can do that. And you can find me online at Valerie Valdes on Twitter. All of my other kind of social media links are on my website. So that's the quickest place to find them. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter mostly, where you can also hear about all of the bizarre things my baby likes to say. It's a lot.
My bad.
Well, that's fantastic. And and for everybody here, please support all the authors here tonight. If you're in the local area, please go by and first of all, say hello to Susan Crutchfield. Stop in and say hello. Make sure you're wearing your mask when you go to the library. And stop in there. See the local author bookshelf that they have there. You can see if you can sway Susan to squeeze a book or 2 in there, so that local people can get access to the book. Also, to encourage people to stop in at authors, have them stop in and get your book at the library. Because remember, 25% of the book sales go to the benefit of the library. And Susan, I'm going to give you, before I say my final thing, anything you'd like to say at this moment.
Sure. I want to remind everyone we have another event coming up on Saturday where we're actually going to be interviewing you. So we're going to hear more about your Shiloh Mystery Series. So I hope everyone joins us for that Zoom. It's going to be Saturday at 11 a.m. You can sign up for that just like you did tonight, and we will have a really great conversation. I'm excited for it. But thank you so much for everybody coming tonight. This has been great. We always love hearing from authors. So we're very excited, and definitely people come on by. We've got books for you to buy so you can read all these wonderful books.
Very good. And I did not encourage her to say that. So I guess I owe you the wine or the beer or something from that side of things. So I'm looking forward to what torture Susan has for me Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. I want to thank you. Anybody else got last minute comments? And on that note, I just want to thank everybody for participating. And I think this was fun. Let's try to do this again. What do you think, Angie?
I think that's a great idea.
All
We're
right.
on board.
Well, God bless it. Y'all have a great, safe evening and stay safe and socially distant.